right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to June. Can you believe that June is here? And as we enter into June, I just want to say a couple shout outs to some peeps. First off, all those who are welcoming us from Oak Creek, Franklin. Can we give them a round of applause to our peeps there and all that God's doing? Obviously, all of you are joining us here. And hey, I want to give just a quick personal shout out to my wife. We celebrated 28 years yesterday. Yeah, that's right. We got married when I was 10. Okay, so just to let you know that. No, it was funny. We were just kind of, we're going to celebrate later this week just due to schedules and all that stuff. And it was funny because I said, hey, so what do you want to do? She goes, hey, I want to go to Menards. And if you don't know me, I yard work, any sort of handyman work is like, I'd rather be in the dentist. No, I mean, I love dentists, okay, but I'd rather be at the dentist. And so 28 years, and I'm spending it at Menards. But love her, and just like I said, quick shout out to her as well. Now, I want to begin with what I think is a little bit of a thought-provoking question for you. Here's my question. Who do you think of when you think of a man? I did my own informal survey of both men and women, and here were some of the responses that were given to me. Here was one name, David Goggins. Now, if you don't know who that is, he's a retired Navy SEAL. He's also considered the greatest ultra-marathon runner in the world. And he also holds the world record for most pull-ups in a 24-hour period. 4,025. Good Lord, I hear that. I'm like, I'd love to do 5, And he does 4,025. And he's also known for his famous quote, embrace the suck. Here's another one that was given, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, 6-time NBA champion, 6-time finals MVP, 10-time scoring champion, and many consider Michael the GOAT. For Michael, he is that alpha male killer instinct sort of athlete. And, if you wear any of the Air brands with Nike, that came from Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan was a common one. Here's one that surprised me. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, UFC color commentator, comedian, was the former host of the Fear Factor. Let's say one of the great shows of all time, Fear Factor, all right? YouTube that if you've never seen that before. Big into martial arts. And Joe is known mainly now for his podcast. Actually, Spotify just re-signed him for just a measly $250 million. Final one, Eminem. Marshall Bruce Mathers III is his real name. And Eminem is he's considered by many the greatest hip-hop artists of all time because he is considered the one that popularized hip-hop with middle America. And Eminem has sold more than 500 million records in his lifetime. Who do you think of when you think of a man? Well, today we are beginning a short series called Man Down. And in this series, I'm going to talk a bit more specifically to men. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, Mark, that's gender stereotyping. Well, you just need to know this. Culture does not want us to have this conversation, but if you know us, we don't care what culture says. Plus, we have never been afraid to shy away from the hard and necessary conversations. And I think you'll see as we kind of talk about what we talk about today, this is a hard and necessary conversation. The Apostle Paul, he seemed to think that this was a very important conversation to have when he wrote this in 1 Corinthians. He said, keep your eyes open for spiritual danger. Stand true to the Lord. Act like men. Be strong, and whatever you do, do it with kindness and love. And so Paul has to tell the church in Corinth, he's like, hey, would you just act like men? Now, what did Paul? Did Paul not care about women? What about the women? Was this Paul's version of toxic masculinity? My guess is that Paul was dealing with an issue back then that is still very common today. That women were more open and willing to step into their God-given calling than men were. And so Paul has to single out the men. Now, as I begin, let me just say a couple things to the ladies. Ladies, I really believe that it is harder to be you in so many ways today. That you are fighting battles and still fighting battles that you shouldn't have to fight still. And throughout the years, I have had many conversations with you that go something like this. How can I help my husband too? Or I have been hurt by a man and now I can't trust a man. Or single ladies, this is a big one I've heard, where are all the good men? I'm trying to help, okay? I'm in your corner as far as that's concerned. But here's what you need to know. I hope you feel heard and valued as we go through this series, because I say valued because a big part of what God has done here at this church is because of you. I mean, you are incredible. I mean, so much of what God has done is through your faithfulness and your generosity and your leadership and your courage to take next steps. And while I'm going to talk a bit more specifically to men, you just need to know you are not going to be left out. Because many of the things that we talk about in this series, you're going to connect with because there's overlap. Now, the reason I'm going to talk specifically to men, at least more so, is the fact that there is so much confusion in our culture about what it means to be a man, and there's just a lot of stereotyping that's going on. I mean, when I asked you the question, who do you think of when you think of a man? I want you to think about why you chose the person or people that you did. My guess would be is there was some sort of stereotypes driving that answer. And here's the thing, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it often leaves us a very incomplete picture. And so what we're going to do leading up to Father's Day is we're going to have a very straightforward conversation about what it means to be a godly man. And when I say godly man, I mean to be the person God intended for you to be. And then the second part, and what it means to step into that calling. Now, let's just kind of let this sink in here for a minute. For most of our lives, we have been told that we are here by accident, and so as a result, we live accidentally. But the part I want you to just kind of let sink in is that you were made on purpose and for a purpose. That there is potential for greatness in every single person, man and woman. See, God has great plans for your life. And so as we go through this series, we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a godly man and to then begin to step into that calling. And I really believe that there's a lot of hunger for that, but at the same time, there is a lot of confusion around that. I want to begin by just sharing a little bit of my personal story with this and why this is just such an important topic for me. Before I was a Jesus follower, one of the reasons why I wouldn't become one is because I thought anyone who followed Jesus, especially men, they were weak and weird, not very manly. And then I became one, and then I just still struggle with this idea of what does it mean to follow Jesus as a man, because I don't want to be weak and weird. Well, years after making that decision, I was invited to a Promise Keepers event. And if you don't know what Promise Keepers is, Promise Keepers was this very large Christian men's movement, happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it wrestled with some of these very topics and issues. And they would pack football stadiums of men. And so I went to one in Jacksonville, and there were 60,000 men there. And I met all different kinds of men. And these men were not weird, nor were they weak. These were men that they lived with purpose. They just felt fully alive. They wanted to love their families, make a difference in their communities, and most importantly, they truly loved Jesus. One of the speakers was a guy named Tony Evans, and he spoke at many of the Promise Keepers events, and he would often say this, and I'm just going to read this whole thing to you. Here's what Tony would say in many of his talks. He would remind men of this. If you want to change the world, change a continent. If you want to change a continent, change a country. If you want to change a country, change a state. If you want to change a state, change a city. If you want to change a city, change a neighborhood. If you want to change a neighborhood, change a family. And then here's this last one. If you want to change a family, change a father. This is the heart behind this series. Now, let me tell you, let me give you some of the statistics that back up what Tony Evans was saying. And here's the thing, I am going to unload a bunch of statistics on you, and I'm doing that on purpose because we always talk about defining reality here. And this is reality for us. Here's some statistics. 90% of men in prison did not have a relationship with their father. 44% of people in poverty are single moms. In other words, most of those are because of men who have disconnected in some way. 66% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. 90% of all runaways are from fatherless homes. Now, just listen to some of these numbers as I finish it up. 90s, 80s, 70s. I mean, theirs aren't like, 1 in 3 or, no, listen to these numbers. 85% of all children with behavioral disorders are from fatherless homes. 80% of all rapists are from fatherless homes. 71% of all high school dropouts are from fatherless homes, and 71% of teenage pregnancies are taking place in fatherless homes. What statistics are showing us is that fatherless is the number one contributor to all 5 societal ills: crime, poverty, homelessness, unwed pregnancies, and future fatherlessness. Now, let's take the father part out of this for a minute. Research shows, and study after study is coming out with this, is that men are the loneliest group of people on planet Earth. There was a recent study that came out in the UK that showed that the number one cause of death for men 18 to 40 is not heart attacks, is suicide. Now you may go, well, that's the United Kingdom. Yep, and we're starting to see that same trend happen in this country. Now this isn't just a societal thing. This is a spiritual thing. I want to share with you one last statistic. And in this statistic, I want to show you just the influence that one family member can have on the rest of the family when it comes to people following Jesus. And please hear me as I share this statistic. Like anything we talk about in the series, it is not meant to diminish anybody, but once again, to just kind of show what reality is. If a mom makes a decision to follow Jesus, there's an 18% chance that the rest of the family will, which is pretty amazing. That's nearly 1 in 5. But if a father does, there's a 94% chance that the rest of the family will. That is nearly 5 in 5. So I want to do something, and I want you to just kind of participate with me, because I know that, usually when I ask you to do something, the men don't and the women do, okay? Because that's what we're doing the series, just so you participate with me more. Okay, here's what I want you to do. All right, show hand. Men, I want all you men raise your hand. Just raise your hand just for a minute. Raise them up. Yep, Oak Creek Franklin, raise them up. Okay, keep them up for a minute. I know some of you, you're like, oh, no, keep them up. Okay, men. The futures of the people with their hands down will be greatly influenced by the lives of the people with their hands up. You can put your hands down. Now, that is just not something I say, but we see that from the Bible, and we see that statistic after statistic shows us that very thing. And so Paul says, I want you to act like men. And so what we're going to do is we're going to wrestle through what that looks like together. And I want you to please hear me on this. This isn't going to be me standing up here going, oh, man, you suck. You're not cutting it. This is not what this is going to be about. This is going to be about a series that is going to be challenging, because we can't grow if we're not challenged. But at the same time, it is going to truly build you up, because I am in your corner, because I am one. And as your pastor, I desperately want to see you step into your calling as godly men. And for some of you, future godly men. Now, before we talk about what a godly man is, I want to just briefly talk about what a man is not. And I say briefly because I don't have a lot of time to focus on it, but it does set the direction for where we're going today. And so what a man is not, and here's the answer, you're gonna love this answer. A man is not a boy. Now, some of you are like, oh, that's my one takeaway for today, okay? No, a man is not a boy. And here's what I mean by that. That there is a difference between the words male and man. And just because you are a male does not mean that you are a man. We are told that when we're turned 18 that we become a man. That's not true. You see, I know 45-year-old boys, and I also know 15-year-old men. Well, what does the Bible say is the difference between boyhood and manhood? One word: responsibility. You see, here's the mindset of a boy. You are responsible for me. And so here's what a boy does. A boy looks at everybody around him and says, hey, you clean and cook and you house and you clothe me. And boys live with their parents and expect their parents to clean up all their messes while they play video games until they're in their mid or late 20s. And here's the thing. Living at home is not a bad thing for a boy. I mean, there's a season of years where that is a very, very important thing. But grown men acting like boys is not cute, and it wreaks havoc on families, societies, and churches. You see, we see a very clear transition in the Bible from boyhood to manhood, and it's this: you are responsible for me to I am responsible for others. That's manhood. Now, some of you are like, Mark, that's common sense. Actually, today it is not common sense, because we live in a culture that's encouraging codependency and entitlement and a victim mindset. Now, men, especially single men, okay, let me just say this for you, all right? Just listen to this. Responsibility is very, very sexy. It's very sexy. I was talking to a Christian woman, and here's the thing, married women would agree with this, I think. I was talking to a single Christian woman, and we were just kind of going back and forth, and she is very, very successful. She's a leader. I mean, she's a catch in so many aspects. And so I was talking to her, and I said, so what are you looking for in a man? And here's what she said. I'm looking for a Christian man who owns a house. And I go, owns a house? And she goes, yeah, if he owns a house, it shows he's responsible. And if he's responsible there, he will be responsible for us. Now, keeping that in mind, what is a godly man? And here's what I want to do with the rest of my time. I'm going to give you 3 statements that'll help us define this. And there's more than 3 statements, okay? But just in just all my years of, like I said, this is an important topic to me, just as a follower of Jesus who's a man, and being a dad and being a husband and all stuff, such a critical thing, and having a heart for men. I've had help over the years, the last 17 years, with people like Brian Tome and Josh Howerton. John Tyson does great jobs, really helped shape this for me, and I hope this really helps begin to clarify some things for you. So 3 statements on what is a godly man. Here's the first one. A godly man has a vision. A vision. Now, a vision is something that's out there. A vision is something that when you look at your life, there's space to it. It's something that you are working towards. And God created us to live with vision. I want to read to you one of the most overlooked verses in the creation narrative or the creation story. I mean, it really speaks into this whole idea. And understand, this was written before sin entered the world and then messed everything up. And so here's what the writer of Genesis says about vision. It says, the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And so there's this interesting order to things in creation. It was like God created everything, and then he created humanity, and then he put humanity in his creation, and he gave humanity vision. And his vision was, I want you to partner with me in continuing to develop my creation and continuing to create in my creation. In other words, God gave every single person a vision to be contributors with him in creation, so that everything and everyone would be as he intended it to be. One of the biggest struggles that I'll hear as I kind of talk to people, men and women, is found in this question right here. What's my purpose? What's my purpose? Now, there's a lot to that question, but I love that question because purpose is just another word for vision. And the reason every single person wrestles with that is because God placed it in every single person to do something with their life, to contribute with their life. You know, vision is such an important thing, especially with men, that when we don't have vision, when we aren't contributing, we consume. We'll just consume more stuff, more experiences, more sinful outlets or behaviors. We'll just consume more activities that will just help us escape from life. We'll do things that really don't matter with our life. And when we don't contribute, we will settle for comfort. I just recently heard the story about the guy who invented the escalator. He was dumbfounded when they installed the first escalator because he saw people go on it and they just stood there, which it was created for them to actually walk up the stairs faster. But see, without vision, that's what our life looks like. As a church, we just finished an 8-week series on relationships. And we decided to take it in a very different direction than we normally do. A lot of times we'll give some relation advice and tips, biblically speaking, all that stuff. But we took a very different direction and we said, we're going to start to cast vision, God's vision for what our relationships are supposed to be. And it was kind of cool because just talking to some married men throughout the series, just having some conversation, going like, I got to be honest with you, I don't look at marriage in that way. But now I'm starting to wrestle and pray about what does it mean for me to lay down my life for my wife. In other words, there's a gap that they're working towards. That's vision. I talk with parents who acknowledge that they were parenting without any vision in their parenting. And so now they're writing out a vision statement in their parenting, and now they're moving towards that. That's vision. And vision isn't just relationships. It affects every part of our life. There's a guy that goes to our church who recently retired his corporate job, extremely successful, retired early, and he could take the next 25 years and just lay on the beach or play golf or pickleball or whatever it may be. But he realizes that in doing that, he would be going against God's design for him as a contributor. And so now he is using his gifts and ability. He's recently come on our staff part-time, and he is elevating us in ways we otherwise wouldn't be elevated. God created us to live with vision, and it's our responsibility to pursue and step into that vision. And what I found is that when that grabs and takes hold in a man's heart, everything and everyone around him is elevated. Are you living with vision? Here's the second statement. A godly man is a protector. The Carnegie Hero Fund Commission is kind of this cool commission. What they do is they study people who do heroic acts. And so they recently, they did the survey, and then they released the results of people who were in trouble situations, and then they had people who stepped in and bailed them out or saved them from those troubled situations. And here's what they found. 90% of the people who stepped in were men. Now, ladies, that doesn't mean that you're not brave, because you are. But God just created men with the heart to protect. Let's go back to our Genesis verse, because we see this from the very beginning. The writer of Genesis says, the Lord took the man and put him in the garden to work it. So there's the vision part. Now here's the aspect of the vision part. And to take care of it. In other words, that phrase take care means to watch over, to protect everything and everyone in it. Now, when I say protector, you don't have to be some testosterone-infused musclehead to be a protector, okay? You can be small in stature. You can be timid and shy in nature. But man, I tell you what, if someone's going to come in and attack your family, you're going to jump out of bed in those tighty-whities of yours, and you're going to grab that lamp as a weapon, and you're going to fight that person to the death because you're a protector. There's just something inside of you that will righteously die for those around you, your family and your friends and the vulnerable of society. It's in you. But protecting others goes beyond just giving our lives for them. It also means being willing to live to protect them. Now, let me just give you two examples of how this would look in our lives. One of the ways that we protect those around us is you protect them emotionally speaking. One of the tragedies of our day, and honestly throughout history, is just the amount of abuse that women and children have experienced at the hands of men. And there should never be a woman or a child around a godly man that should feel anything but completely safe. As a husband, I'm called to not only protect my wife Donna physically, but I'm also called to protect her heart as well. Meaning this is that she never has to worry about me straying into trouble in any way. That I'm going to live my life with the utmost of integrity. That's what it means to protect. If you're a dad, this also means if you have daughters or a daughter, it means we are called to protect our daughters. You know, if a 16-year-old comes over to your house, knocks on your door, and you hardly know this person, or maybe you know, or you don't know them at all, and they say, hey, can I take out your car? You're going to go, no, you're not taking out my car, dude. I don't hardly know you. But he knocks on your door and says, hey, can I take out your daughter? Most men say, yeah, sure, no problem. In other words, we protect our stuff more so than even our own daughters. Now, please hear me on this. I'm not saying he comes over and you pull him to the back room and go, I'm going to show you my gun rack back here, because I'm not saying we do that, okay? But I am saying is what do you know about this person? And is he a person of character? And if you don't know, the answer is no until you do know. Now, I've had some people say, well, Mark, that's just old-fashioned. I completely disagree with that statement. You see, what you are doing is we are setting an example for our daughters of how a man should protect her. So that becomes the filter for her for how any man she dates should protect her. And it sets an example for our sons how to treat a woman. Another way that we can protect those and live to protect those around us is we protect them spiritually as well. That statistic I shared earlier about the 94% men, fathers, and the influence that they have. Listen, ladies, you have been carrying the brunt of this burden for way too long. Godly men take responsibility. They don't go, honey, it's up to you and all that stuff. No. Honey, let's do this together. And so how can we do this, men? How can we do this more? It means movement and taking steps. Are you taking steps? Here's a question that you need to ask. What step can you take to spiritually protect those around you? And it might mean this. Instead of making church an option, it's actually a priority. It means you step in to serve somewhere so you are an example for your family and those around you, what it means to be humble and to serve those around you so it's not about yourself. If you're not a Jesus follower, it means joining one of our Alpha communities so you can have faith conversations and so the people around you can see you being open to taking steps. Listen, are you protecting those around you spiritually? And so a godly man, what they do is they are a protector. Third and final statement is a godly man takes a minority position. And when I say minority position, I mean this idea of the road less traveled idea. Here's how Paul said it. Paul said it this way. He said, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. There is such a pressure to conform to things, to just do things because everybody else is doing things. In fact, there's such a pressure that when we do it, it's become so normalized, we don't even know we're doing it. You know, if you're a parent of an elementary kid, there is such a pressure to give them a phone because everybody else has one, and you don't want them to feel left out, even though they aren't emotionally and mentally ready to handle it. Or there's this pressure when it comes to sexuality that there's so much pressure to just live without boundaries because, you know what, everybody else is, and we don't want to get made fun of. You know, if you're married, there's this pressure of if you're not feeling it, you just end it and start somewhere else because we're told, you know what, you deserve to be happy. Or when it comes to God, it's like, hey, don't take God too seriously. You just do whatever you want. But if you're a Jesus follower, we don't conform because we are called to be different. I don't know if you've heard this said or not. I bet you'd have, especially in just kind of the culture and climate that we are in. I've had people say this to me. It just feels like our world is getting darker. It just feels like things are getting worse. And then we read all the different statistics of mental health and addiction and divorce and suicide and all that stuff, and all those stats are going up. Let me ask you this. Have you ever stopped to just think about that just continuing to do the same thing is only going to get us the same thing? In other words, conforming isn't working. And so if we want different results, and I think we all want different results, then we have to be willing to do things different. And that takes courage. And I think our world is open to different. Jesus said it this way. And he said it many different ways, but he said it this way. He said, whoever finds their life will lose it. In other words, whoever just conforms to what everybody else will doing, you know, eventually they're just going to struggle with all the same things, a purpose and all that stuff that everybody else is doing. But then he says this, and whoever loses their life for my sake. In other words, whoever has the courage to say no to conforming because they're following a different vision. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it because they realize in following Jesus, they are called to different, and as a result, they experience different. Personally, I've just had to come to grips with this, and this is not always easy, okay? This can be very, very difficult. I just realized to follow Jesus is I'm going to have the minority view on how we raise our kids and how we manage our money and how we spend our time and what our priorities are. And men are not afraid to take the minority position on things because in doing so, they experience the kind of life that a minority of the people get the privilege of experiencing. A few weeks ago, I had this really cool experience. I had this graduation party, and I was there. I met a dad that lived in our subdivision I'd never met before. And so we're talking, and I'm asking him his story, and he starts to tell me a story that he is retired from the military. And I found out later, he recently retired from the military. I found out later he was really, really high up in the military. I mean, this guy had done things and seen things that I can't even imagine. And I asked him about his kids, and he said, I've got 3 kids, and one of them is in the FBI. He was there. One of them is in this small, very, very elite group of people training for a high-level position in the military. And then one of his kids is actually exploring doing missionary work in a part of the world in a very, very impoverished country. And all his kids, they loved God, they served God, they loved each other. And so I get curious when I see things like that, so I just start peppering him with questions. And I'm asking him, hey, tell me how you parented your kids. And he starts talking. He said, right away, we just decided that we were just going to buck the system of culture, and we were going to cast a very different vision for our family and for our kids. And he started talking about casting God's vision for their family. And he's kind of talking about this whole thing. He said, we just made decisions, and they weren't popular, but we didn't care. We saw beyond that. And then he started talking about Jesus. And here's this military guy, he's talking about Jesus, and he's getting emotional as he's talking about Jesus. And so I left the party, and I'm walking away, and I just can't get this guy out of my mind. I'm so inspired by this guy. And I'm thinking, this is a godly man right here. And it's not because he fits certain stereotypes or certain personality styles, because he didn't. As a military guy way up there, I would have thought he would have been, very disciplined. And so, this guy was just very kind and gentle and soft-spoken. I never would have guessed that he was. But this guy, man, he lived with vision. In fact, he's still living with vision. He's retired, but he's working for Flight for Life, serving people there. And he's also serving elementary boys who are fatherless right now. And this is a guy that was a protector. I mean, he gave his entire life to protect. And this is a guy who was not afraid to take the minority position on things. And his family, there'll be a ripple effect to that whole thing. His family and those around him will feel and are feeling the impact of that. So here's where we're going in our series. Next week, I'm going to talk about a man's biggest struggle. And a man's biggest struggle isn't money, sex, or power. It's actually something very different than that. And ladies, you need to come back for that, because what we're seeing now is this is becoming more widespread in you now. And then on Father's Day, we're going to do something kind of cool, something very different for Father's Day. But, if I told you what it is, then I'd have to end lives, and I love you too much for that, okay? And so I'm not going to tell you what that is right now. But here's what I want us to do is we just kind of kick things off. I have been really praying that, whether you're a Jesus follower or not, it's okay. But I've been really praying that God would really speak clearly into you during this series. And so here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to everybody bow their head and close their eyes. And the question I'm just going to kind of start. Oak Creek Franken, bow, close your eyes. I'm just going to throw out a question, and then I'm just going to say some things, and just where might God be tweaking your heart a little bit? Maybe where be tapping on the shoulder going, hey, would you just pay attention to that? Would you pay attention to that? God will so gently do that. Just be open to just calming the voices that you hear and all that stuff, and just be still. As I talked about those 3 things, were there any that you just really stood out to you? Are you living your life with vision, a God-inspired vision? Or are you just settling? You just kind of checked out? You're settling for comfort? You're just kind of pursuing stuff. You're just consuming because everybody else around you consuming, and you just keep consuming. And so really your life just looks like everybody else. Are you pursuing a God-inspired vision because God has an inspired vision for you? Are you a protector? I mean, how do the people around you really feel? Are you putting them ahead of yourself? Do you protect those around you physically and emotionally, spiritually, mentally? Are you a protector? Do you have the courage to live in a minority position? Culture's going this way, doing this, okay, that's fine. But then Jesus casts a different vision. He says, no. Life is found over here. Do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to say no so you can say yes to something better? Man or woman, do you have that? Father, I pray that your voice would be heard. And the small, still voice to say, come on, I got something better. And Father, I pray that our entire church, man, woman, young, old, would have the courage to go, I want to step into something greater. And you have vision because you have a purpose, because we're all made on purpose and for a purpose. And when we step into that, God, oh man, we just light up. We just light up. God, help us not to settle for what everyone else is doing. And God, we're called to be protectors. God, we should be the safest people on earth to be around, because they are the priority for us, because they're the priority for you. And God, our calling is to be different, not weird, different, light, salt. When everything else is stirring and buzzing, we rise above the stirring and the buzzing, and we give a different picture, a better picture, an attractive picture. God, I pray your Spirit would move in us, would speak clearly, would fill us, would empower us, would give us the courage to do the things that you want us to do so that we can step in and be the people that you've intended us to be and not settle for anything less. God, you're the best. You're the best, and you want what's best for us. May we have the courage to believe and trust that. And I pray this in your name. Amen.